Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Jay Stevens Podcast. This is episode number 82, dedicated to two men who are tied with 82 career PGA Tour wins, which also has them tied for first place, Mr. Sam Snead, and of course, Tiger Woods. And as always, thank you for listening and downloading to another episode of the podcast. On today's episode, we have Mr. Craig Campbell, co-host of the FinalScore, coming on to join me to talk about expectations, things we can expect for three quarterbacks coming up in the upcoming National Football League season. Mr. Cameron Newton, Mr. Jameis Winston, and then, of course, a guy that plays in Arizona people often forget about, Kyler Murray. But before we get to that conversation, I have a couple things I want to mention. Coming up next week, we have an Ohio State podcaster, Corey Thompson, him and his co-host Johnny do a phenomenal job. The Scarlet and Great podcast will be coming out a week from today. Be on the lookout for that. Then also, the following week, I have an NFL scouting coordinator for NFL Draft Bible coming on. Draft week coming on to get us ready for the NFL draft. Yes, I know it's going to be done via virtual style. Hey, that's not going to stop the operation. The NFL is going to figure this thing out and go on as scheduled, and I am very, very happy that they have not postponed the NFL draft. Also, one more announcement I want to make before getting to the conversation Craig and I had. I believe it was a week or two ago I mentioned that we are very, 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 very close to eclipsing the 4,000 plays or download mark in the history, the small, short history of the Jay Stevens Podcast. And we did eclipse that mark as of 10 p.m. on April the 8th, 2020. We have eclipsed the 4,000 download or plays mark with this podcast. And I have to put emphasis on download or plays because I was telling one of my friends about this and they didn't know the difference. They thought they were the same thing. If you download the episode on your phone, that is not technically a play or a download, depending on which podcaster you're talking to. So I always say downloads or plays, they're the same thing. We have eclipsed that mark 10 p.m. April the 8th, as of that mark, we have eclipsed it, gone over the 4,000 plays download mark. And one of my goals, it wasn't my goal when I started this podcast, but I would love to have 5,000 downloads or plays, whichever version of word you want to use, by May the 12th, the 1-year anniversary of the Jay Stevens Podcast. I don't care if it happens this week. I don't care if it happens next week. I don't care if it happens April the 30th, which happens to be a Thursday, 3 weeks from today. I don't care if it happens at the very last minute prior to May the 12th. It does not matter. I would just love to hit the 5,000 plays or downloads mark by May the 12th, the 1-year anniversary mark of the Jay Stevens Podcast. I also want to say thank you, because that could not happen without you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for reviewing. Thank you for rating, and then also thank you for getting the word out about the podcast via word of mouth. Your friends, your family, even that foe that you don't like, but you know they like sports, and you think they will enjoy the same thing you enjoy. Thank you for telling everyone. Thank you for getting the word out, because without you, this milestone, this mark could not be met. Let's go ahead and take a trip to Deltona, Florida, to enjoy my fun conversation that I had with Mr. Craig Campbell, co-host of The Final Score. Hey, Craig, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks, Jay. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, no problem, man. No problem. Recently this week, I believe it was Thursday at midnight, the Florida governor issued a stay-at-home order for you guys, your state, where you're currently living. How has that kind of shifted people around you and your thought process when you guys really are told to not leave the home?
Well, here in Florida, there's been a lot of pressure for Governor DeSantis to put in that stay-at-home order, because we are in the top 5 of confirmed cases of COVID-19, but not a lot of deaths. So it's been they didn't want to put that in at all. So as far as us, I mean, I haven't really left the house too much anyway, but no, it's been a little crazy around here. People, a lot of places, as you would imagine, grocery stores are pretty bare and everything, but Florida is a really interesting state just because of the fact that a lot of people, for whatever reason, they don't like to listen to authority. They like to do whatever they want. So, but it's been a little bit different for us recording our show. It's affected us because we usually record weekly, but now we're just recording kind of when some news piles up and we can put out a show.
Yeah, I understand that. Definitely understand that. With I think a lot of sports shows, it's been it's been a different change. It's been an adjustment. You can't really prepare life for sports or even for life for things to be shut down like they have. What kind of talk a little bit about your show? You mentioned it. When you guys started, you and Chris, some things that make it unique to you, and then some of the changes aside from just like the times of recording that you guys have made due to COVID-19.
Absolutely. So the podcast that we have is called FinalScore, and it is on our own network that him and I also co-own, called Podcast City Network. So the two of us and then a third owner, they started the network about 2 years ago, and we started our show just over a year ago. So we just hit our year anniversary a couple months ago.
Nice.
But
nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's interesting. You see all these podcasts that don't last more than 15, 20 episodes, and we're on, I think 51 was our last one. So it was good. But we just basically started the podcast out of a love for just a love for sports. Like I love having conversations about sports. I can talk almost any sport and be able to hold my own. But I grew up in Michigan, so I'm a big Detroit fan all the way around. So, the diehard fans, I know you live in Indiana, the diehard sports fans in the Midwest, we can talk sports all day. So that's kind of where it started, is we just each had a love for sports, and he wanted to have a sports show on his network, and it just kind of took off from there. We usually recorded episodes and put them out, but then we started doing something really unique, and we now live stream all of our episodes. So
I've noticed that.
So we kind of treat it like a real broadcast, and I think that's really kind of helped us hone, because there's no editing, there's no if you screw up, you just got to roll with it. So I think it's been really fun and unique, and I've always had a dream of being a sportscaster since I was a kid anyway. So I think it's kind of fun to be able to kind of live that dream a little bit.
Tell us a little bit about your live streaming and that whole aspect, because most people most guests that I've had on the podcast are podcasters. They don't do the live stream where they're live recording, videoing themselves, or even doing a Zoom with the guest that's on with them. They're just recording at their home. They do some editing and things like that, or if they mess up, they may take some things out. But you guys are literally live, and I've watched a few of your broadcasts. The back and forth, it seems like you guys are two best friends. I've never met either one of you guys, but it seems like you guys are like best friends, just going back and forth, bickering and things like that. How has the live aspect of it been with you?
It's been a little challenging, because when we have technical difficulties, it could really derail the whole show. But I think it's really helped us in our preparation. We have to, we have a joined Google document that we map out our whole show, and I think it's gotten us pretty good on being able to. Now we have a timer to keep ourselves in a time frame. But yeah, we used to ramble for like 2.5 hours, but now we keep it pretty compact to an actual hour-long show. And it's been a new skill that both of us have had to learn, because now you're not dealing with just audio. You have to deal with the video aspect of it. And we have a open source broadcasting program that we use that I'm sure if you've seen it, it kind of looks like a PTI setup. Like it is.
It does.
And that's kind of a little bit of look we're going for, but we wanted to kind of present ourselves as professionally as possible. And that's been a little bit of a learning curve. Chris is the guy behind that. He's the producing of the show while it's live. So I'm just the guy that sits there and spouts off on the other side of the table.
Oh, so there's no like live producers, just you two there yourselves. There's nobody behind the scenes running everything. Just you.
Correct.
Two?
It's just the two of us. We have when we're on location, like we go to some of our sponsors to do on location shows, like we did for the Super Bowl. And sometimes we will have somebody actual produce it, a third person there, but most of the time it's just the two of us.
Wow, man, that's amazing. It's a challenge in and of itself, doing it live and then also producing. But that's I'm amazed. I didn't know. I thought the whole time you guys had someone behind the scenes, and then you guys were just talking and running the show. But no, that's interesting, and also shows how flexible you guys have been to just really be on the fly, learning this as you go. Are there any plans you're able to share for the future with the show?
Well, starting actually Sunday night, which we're releasing this episode later this week, but starting this week, we are actually doing something fun we've never done on the show before. We're going to be hosting a fan voted tournament of sports movie madness, we're calling it, and we've got this tournament where it's 64 of the best sports movies of all time put into 4 different regions, much like the NCAA basketball tournament. And we have our selection Sunday, which is by the time this is out, it'll already have happened. But we are having every week people can vote, and it's gonna whittle all the way down to a Final Four and a championship. And throughout that process, we're working with another podcast that's here in Florida to put this on, and we're also going to be raising funds throughout the whole tournament, and those funds are going to be donated to an organization that helps those that have been affected by the coronavirus.
Nice. I like it. Sports movies are fun. We debate those all the time. There's a guy on Twitter, Jason Barrett. He runs Barrett Sports Media, and he put out a SportsCenter anchor bracket, 64 different anchors, goes all the way back to Keith Olbermann, Chris Berman, Dan Patrick, even to the new guys. And I believe the final, it is Scott Van Pelt versus Dan Patrick. Ooh. Van Pelt beat out Stuart Scott in the Final Four. My vote would have been Stuart Scott. That's who I voted for. But I was kind of amazed that that a lot of the fans are voting. They value Van Pelt. And it really could be Van Pelt is still doing his thing now. Unfortunately, Stuart Scott's no longer with us. So it could be recency bias. It was 52% versus 48%. So it was a really close vote. But I'm going to be looking forward to that vote or that little bracket you guys are doing. I'll be voting myself. I'm a guy. I'll say this now. I guess I'm from Indiana. You mentioned that. I don't like the movie Hoosiers. I've watched it once, and I'll probably never watch it again. But those are things that, like sports fans, we like. We debate things like that. But enough of that. I brought you here mainly to talk about football in the fall. And I'm looking forward to it, not just because football season, we love it. You love it. I don't know if you know this. I'm an Ohio State fan. You're a Michigan fan, so that'd be fun. A little back and forth in the fall for college football side. But when it comes to the NFL, there's a quarterback out there that missed, I think, most of last season. I think he played 2 weeks. Then he got hurt, went down with an injury, missed the rest of the season, in Cameron Newton. And he's still available. Are you shocked that he's still out there and that no one's
He's got to be the best available player out there on the offensive side of the ball. Looking at, am I surprised that he's still out there? Not really, just because of a few different factors. You mentioned the injury he had, his Liz Frank injury, limited him 2 games. Didn't really necessarily play well in those games. The first game against the Rams did pretty well, but that second game against the Bucs didn't necessarily look very good. So you could tell that injury, along with his shoulder injuries, been really kind of hobbling him the last year or two. But I think it's mostly just the injuries, and you've got the NFL draft coming up, and all these quarterbacks that are supposed to be, it's supposed to be one of the deepest quarterback classes in a while. So I think a lot of those factors play into it. And if you look at teams around the league, there's not a lot of spots that Cam Newton can really fit. So a lot of teams have their guy at quarterback.
Yeah, they do. And then with Cam Newton, I saw one stat last year. It's kind of eye-opening and eye-popping to me, where his career stats, this is in the middle of last season, so the other quarterback was still playing, but Cam Newton's career stats and Andy Dalton's career stats at that time were very, very similar. The one thing that Cam Newton does provide that a lot of other quarterbacks can't provide is his frame. He's big, he's strong. He's if you hit him, he's like Big Ben. It's hard to knock him down. But I like Cam Newton. I just don't know what to expect going forward. And this is partly because I'm a Colts fan. And so with the Colts, Andrew Luck, I saw all his injuries. I saw the bad O-line play. I saw him getting sacked a lot, and it really affected him mentally on the field. But with Cam Newton in his frame and his stature, I don't know, and Craig, you may be thinking different than me. You may have an expectation. I don't know what to expect from him in the fall.
Well, the one knock on him, you mentioned all the intangibles that he has and just the things you can't teach, the size, the strength, the speed. You can't knock him down, but his game is dependent upon him being healthy and using his feet, using his arm. But if you look at his pure quarterback stats, he has not really been a great passing quarterback. He has to be a dual threat. I mean, in 2018, which is his last full season, he had a career high in passing completion, and it was 67.5%. But the next highest percentage that he had was 2013, and it was 61%. Like, his passing numbers, he doesn't look great as a passing quarterback. So, I mean, I think that plays a little bit into why he's 30. He's still got a few years left. But just from a pure passing standpoint, if Cam Newton wants to be effective, he has to go to a team that is going to try to utilize all of his skill sets and not just depend on him throwing the ball down the field. It doesn't help that Carolina never gave him any help, no receivers, barely any help on the offense. But I think that just the passing numbers that he has had, or lack thereof, in his career, even in his MVP season, he didn't pass the ball particularly well, but he was able to use both his arms and his feet.
Yes. And I think going into this next season, that's what a lot of people are a lot of GMs, people in the front office, head coaches, offensive coordinators, they're skeptical because he does use his feet. And when he does use his feet properly and he does use his legs the best way that he can be one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. I won't say better, one of the best, because ultimately, like you mentioned and said very well, his completion percentage, his arm, his accuracy, it's never been there. And so when I say best, I'm thinking like the guys that are very, very accurate, that can make all the throws anytime, run or pass, it doesn't really matter. But when it comes to the arm that's needed to move the ball, to move the chains, they have it. Cam Newton hasn't had the accuracy, but I'm really looking forward to seeing how his legs and how his feet hold up, how his body holds up. And I'm kind of nervous because a lot of people are saying he may go out west to the Chargers. Well, the Chargers offensive line, we saw what happened last year with Phillip Rivers. The O-line, it wasn't really the best. And Cam Newton, I'm looking at his sack numbers right here for the yearly sack totals that he's had. His rookie year, he got sacked 35 times. 2013, he got sacked 43 times. 2014, 38 times. The last full season that he played, 2018, he played 14 to 16 games, but he got sacked 29 times. In my mind, I'm not shocked that he's still out there because people know that with him, you need his feet. He needs his feet to be good. And a lot of the teams that are out there that are still available, Craig, you may agree with this, their O-lines aren't that good.
Right, and the one thing, you mentioned the Chargers. I've seen other teams being tossed around, and of course the Patriots come up a lot, but I've been always really quick to shoot that down because it doesn't make sense from the Patriots' perspective. I mean, you got Bill Belichick sees the game a certain way, and Cam Newton sees it a completely opposite way. So I don't think, and I know Scott Pioli mentioned on a CBS Sports Radio Saturday, this past Saturday, that Cam and Bill Belichick wouldn't coexist just because their ideologies, and I completely agree. You look at other teams. The one thing I will say about the Chargers is I think that is his best fit because that is the only team in the NFL that he would be a definite starter on day one as soon as he walked in the door. And they did go out. Yes. Yeah, they traded Russell Okung, but they ended up getting Brian Bulaga. They got I forget the guy's name, but he's the guard in that trade with Okung from Carolina. Trey something, I forget off the top of my head. But they upgraded their O-line. Their defense is going to be healthier. So if he were to go anywhere, and that Tyrod Taylor has a similar game to Cam Newton, he's a little bit more efficient, but I think that would be his best fit. And if he doesn't go anywhere else, I think he's going to have to settle for being a backup.
Have you ever thought about making your own podcast? It seems like that's the in thing right now. Well, do I have the people for you? Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and extremely easy to use. And now, Anchor will match with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you can get paid for podcasting right away. To get started, go to anchor.fm/start. Once again, that's anchor.fm/start.
Yeah, I honestly think that's going to be the biggest thing with Cam Newton, with the way that he views himself. It's very similar to the guy that he played in week number 2. You mentioned the game, Panthers versus Bucks in week 2. Jameis Winston, last year the first quarterback to throw 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions in a season. And when I'm watching him, I went back and watched some film on him this week just in preparation for today and us talking here on the podcast. Part of the time, I'm like, Jameis, you know what to do. You know what you can do. Make the right throw. And he makes an okay throw. Timing is off. And it's like, okay, Jameis, you're going back. You're the same guy you were your second year in college. I mean, second year as a starter at Florida State. We saw you fall off. We saw your decision-making going down. Okay, maybe you could get a little bit better. No, he hasn't. And then ultimately, the other time that I'm watching his highlights, I'm like, what are you doing? You're throwing the ball into double, triple, sometimes quadruple coverage, and you're expecting your receiver. I don't care if it's Mike Evans. I don't care if it's Chris Godwin. I don't care who the receiver is. If you're throwing into quadruple coverage, you can't expect your receiver to have the best chance of catching the ball. What are some of the observations you had of Jameis Winston last year and in grouping that with expectations for next year?
Looking at last year, you kind of look at he had a career high in completions, attempts, yards, touchdowns, interceptions, of course, yards per attempt, yards per game, and sacks. Like, he led the NFL in 3 different categories: passing attempts, yards, and of course picks. But I think if you look at his previous year, his numbers were a lot more inflated in 2019, because I like to look at it as how much of that was him versus how much of that was Byron Leftwich being the first-year offensive coordinator and his play calling and the type of style of offense that they run. Because, Byron Leftwich, they started throwing the ball a lot more down the field versus in 2018 when they didn't throw the ball down the field as much. But I think part of the reason why he's still available, you already mentioned it, is because he's Jameis Winston. He turns the ball over. He has poor decision-making. He's not – you mentioned it at Florida State too. He has not always been the type of guy that, whether it's just his football IQ or it's just he thinks he's a gunslinger like a Brett Favre type, or he can just put it into a window that's not there. We don't really know, but he's probably the most intriguing of the 2 quarterbacks as far as his situation, because he's still only 26 years old. And he's just coming off of, that monster year, yet teams are not lining up because, I don't know, maybe they don't think he can cut it or what. But I think there's a couple of places that he could fit in really well.
I like Jameis at Florida State. Coming out of college, I expected him to be the better quarterback when it was grouping him with Marcus Mariota. They came out the same year. So I was thinking, I believe it was the same year. So I was thinking Mariota, Winston, who's going to be better? And every year in Tampa, I'm expecting Jameis, only because of my desire for him to be better than what he's ever been in his life or his playing career. I want Jameis Winston to literally play better because I want to look good. Because I don't want to be the guy on the show saying, hey, yeah, guys, coming out of college, I thought Jameis was going to be great or good. I'm going to say great. I was going to be good. And then a year or 2 down the road, yeah, I thought he was going to be good. He can still do it. I'm going to tell you, he can do it. Right. No, he can't do it. And I was talking to my dad about this recently, or this was last season when Jameis was playing. And I said, Dad, it's not his eyes. People are saying it's his eyes. No, that man can't read defenses at all. And you go back to Florida State, you saw the same thing. Craig, this man can't read
he can't
anything.
Read a defense to save his life. I mean, I think it was really funny. You mentioned his eyes getting fixed when he went and got surgery right after the season. like that's actually going to fix his decision-making ability. But I mean, you mentioned like being wrong. Like, I think that's half the fun of doing what we do, and we love talking sports. Like, if that happens on our show, I know you mentioned like some of the episodes. Chris and I, if one of us is wrong, we let the other one know about it, and I think that's half the fun.
It is, man. And I know, like, down the road, I'm going to have a segment where it's just like me talking about how off I was with Jameis, how even now it's like I know he probably won't be good. I know fixing his eye, I know getting the LASIK surgery, that's not going to fix his problem. It's all up in his brain. And ultimately, he's very similar to Cam Newton. I did not think about this at all till now. They're very, very similar to where they think they're better than what they actually are. And I'm not sure what the Buccaneers fans think of Jameis, if they're glad he's gone or they're ready for him to be gone after year 2. But he always thinks he's better than what he is. And ultimately, Craig, it's one reason why he has not gotten better.
Right. And actually, a friend of mine that works for the Bucks Report, Philip down there in Tampa, I asked him about it right before Tom Brady signed. I said, I know it's not set in stone, but who would you rather have, Jameis or Brady? He says, I'd honestly want Winston. I was like, what? I know Brady's like 70 years old now, but I mean, you got a chance to bring in a guy who knows how to win. And he, Tampa fans are still, they have a really big love-hate relationship with Winston. And I think some of it is because of the fact that, he went to Florida State. He's kind of considered a hometown guy. And, just like you said, they want him to succeed so badly, but he always finds ways to, shoot himself in the foot or do something like that. So, but I think with his style of play, there is a spot I think he would fit in perfectly just because of how he plays, and that's Pittsburgh. I think he would be a great fit with the Steelers. He plays pretty similarly to Ben Roethlisberger, who is still a big question mark. And we've seen last year, they have zero depth behind Big Ben in Pittsburgh. So I think he fits that offense. I think he would be a really good locker room fit with Mike Tomlin being his head coach. And with all those weapons that they have, they brought in Eric Ebron. I know you and I on Twitter have talked about our feelings about him, but with having Juju and guys there in Pittsburgh, I think that's a great fit for him.
My one thing with that situation, and I think football-wise, it may be okay. My one thing with him going to Pittsburgh is those fans. You give Jameis one 5-interception game, and then him doing it again, they're going to be ready to throw in the towel because their heart knows they don't care who you are. They don't want you. And if you show them early on you can't be successful, they're going to boo you very, very badly. And I'm up in the air. I'm up in the air about Jameis going anywhere. Honestly, I don't know where he'll fit in. But my own thing with that is his mind. I don't think he can handle. Steelers fans are so passionate. Like they are, but they're not delusionally passionate. Like there's some franchises out there, you know what I'm talking about. But the Steelers fans, they absolutely, they know their football. And like you said, they will absolutely jump on him if he makes a lot of mistakes. But look at Big Ben, all the talent in the world. And he still when he was healthy, making questionable decisions, throwing balls where they probably shouldn't throw them. Yet he is so beloved there because he took him to a Super Bowl. But I think Jameis is kind of in the talent, from a talent perspective. I think he fits that same mold. And yeah, he's just got to fix what's between his ears. And that's, I think, his biggest hurdle. It is. I'm not sure what coach it could be that could assist him with that. I'm not sure. I thought maybe Bruce Arians going down there would help him. Yeah, him and Byron Leftwich together, it did help the offense go to do things and passing yard things for Jameis that he may never see again on the stat sheet. But I like him. Like I told you, I'm still hoping and wishing that he'll play to my expectations, only so I can look good. Because I do not want to get a tweet sometime from you and you're saying, Jay, remember that time you told me you wanted Jameis to be good? And Craig, I'm sure you'll go back and forth with me if I really
we'll probably have a little, fun at it. But I know you can hang over my head, being you said an Ohio State fan, you can hang that over my head every single year if you wanted to.
See, I try not to be that guy because I try to be a different Ohio State fan. I know Ohio State fans get a bad rap because we all talk trash. We all hang it in your face. How many days has it been since Michigan beat Ohio State? I try not to be that guy. But trust me, it probably will be a time pretty soon. And hope like if it happens in the fall, I'll probably say something just because I like to talk trash. There's another quarterback here. It's almost like people forget about it. Now, granted, he is 5'10", 207 pounds, but he's all the way in Arizona. You don't really talk about him. He's in the same division with the Rams, the Seahawks, and the 49ers. So ultimately, he is going to be the fourth team, the team forgotten about, even the Phoenix Suns. When Devin Booker does well, we talk about it, but not the same way as we do with other players that are in different markets and things like that. Kyler Murray, this young man here, I really, really, really wish that people talked about him more and talked about how good he can be, how good he is, and the potential that he has with the way that he plays. Because last year, I didn't expect much from him because of his height. And now it's not just me saying, oh, he's 5'10", I'm not going to give him any credit. No, he's very, very short. And I always have a hard time with short quarterbacks, not just seeing over the offensive line, but being able to just basically get the ball up and throw it. No matter how great your arm is, I have a hard time believing and trusting a 5'10" quarterback being able to be good, be able to be successful, and to read defenses very well. But last year, this young man, 3,700 yards, 20 touchdowns. Yes, he threw 12 interceptions, but man, going into the fall,
I'm with you, and I had the same reservations about him coming out of college because, I mean, look at the offense that Lincoln Riley ran at Oklahoma, and he didn't have to make decisions. He was just so much faster than everybody else on the field, and I think he really turned a lot of heads, and myself included, made me. I'm not a complete believer yet, but I think for me, he's well on his way. I mean, yeah, you didn't know what you were going to get with Kyler Murray, undersized, the undersized quarterback. You mentioned all the things that are going against him, but you also had Cliff Kingsbury, first-year head coach, that air raid offense. You didn't know if that's going to work in the NFL, and there are times that it didn't work, but there are a lot of times that it did. So, I mean, I think the future is very promising for those two paired up together. But I mean, when you got a kid like Kyler Murray and you look at like the most beloved quarterback in Arizona history, Jake Plummer, I mean, Kyler Murray broke or set 14 franchise records for the Cardinals last year on his way to the 2019 Offensive Rookie of the Year. And now looking at what the Cardinals decide to do, they know they have a small window on a rookie contract. So they went out and they went out and got Kenyon Drake, and then got rid of David Johnson, and then traded him for DeAndre Hopkins in the process. Now looking at the weapons he has, I'd be really scared if I'm the NFC West right now because the Rams are struggling. The Seahawks, you don't know what you're getting out of them. 49ers came out of nowhere last year. I think the Cardinals could be that 49ers team this year, maybe not that record, but they went 5-10-1 last year, and they lost 2 games by a field goal, 3 other games by less than a touchdown, and they tied the Lions in week 1. So, like, they were that's 6 games right there that could go either way. I mean, you're talking about from 5-10-1 to a possible playoff berth.
Yeah, I think the one thing why I'm expecting big things from him in the fall is that DeAndre Hopkins move. I have gone on a couple rants on my show about how my own thought process has been with Bill O'Brien and how he's moving literally his best player off of the team. You could love Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson's a great player. You could not tell me that he's a better player than DeAndre Hopkins. But with him, he's already great. He already has years where I think he's dropped 0 or 1 ball. That's how many drops he's had in a season. So he's already great. He's already a guy that you can expect throw it up any route. He's going to go get the ball. But you have Larry Fitzgerald, another guy who always gets open, who is not the fastest guy on the field. He's smarter than the guy across from him, and he doesn't drop the ball. So those are kind of things that I'm expecting this season. It's like, yeah, you mentioned Kenyon Drake, but Larry Fitzgerald and DeAndre Hopkins together, those two on opposite sides of the field, who do you tilt the defense to? You can't tilt it to Fitzgerald's side because Hopkins is going to be one-on-one. If you tilt it to Hopkins' side, Fitzgerald is going to be one-on-one. So it's those two together, Craig. I'm expecting big things because the defense.
Yep, and I love Larry Fitzgerald. I mean, he's been in the league for so long, but he's doing everything the right way. I'm surprised he's still playing, but I'm glad he is because the type of effect that he has on a locker room and a young guy like Kyler Murray, That's only going to help him big time throughout his career. But looking at the Cardinals last year under Cliff Kingsbury, they led the NFL in multiple receiver sets, and now you mentioned Hopkins, Fitzgerald, even Christian Kirk in the slot. I mean, those three guys, and you know how hard it is to find good nickel and dime defenders in the secondary in the NFL. Now you've got three weapons that you can use, and Kenyon Drake's pretty good out of the backfield himself catching passes. So you've got all those guys. I think the Cardinals, I don't know if Kyler Murray's numbers are going to make a big jump, but I think the win total is going to be where a lot of that improvement is going to come from for Kyler Murray and the Cardinals.
I think three things are going to go up. Well, one's kind of automatic, but I think I'll say four because they all go together. I think Kyler Murray's completion percentage will go up next year from 64.4, simply because of the guy he has on the field, and Hopkins can kind of help Kyler Murray being a young quarterback and saying, well, yes, I know I'm probably one of the better receivers you'll ever play with, along with the guy on the other side of the field who's probably one of the better guys you'll play with, but we can help you get better, and here's how. So I'm expecting more completion percentage to go up. His passing yards, of course, will go up because of who he has on the field, but ultimately, touchdowns go up, interceptions go down. And so it's kind of the even trade with him. Also, 5, I hope the offensive line gets better because he himself got sacked 48 times the most among any quarterback in the NFL. So let's say 5. But ultimately, this team, they can make some noise. They do have – I don't know if they have the chance, like you said, to make the same record as the 49ers did last year. But in the NFC – Craig,
you mentioned leading
team.
The league in sacks. I mean, that's between sacks and him having 12 interceptions. I think he's still going to get double-digit picks because he's going to – second year, he's going to start taking more chances. And you got DeAndre Hopkins, like you mentioned, barely drops any passes ever. I think he's going to take more chances, but I think those sack numbers go down. I think all the other numbers you mentioned do go up. His pick numbers will probably stay the same, but I could easily see this team – making a shot, especially because we're adding a playoff team. I could easily see the Cardinals being in that conversation for a wild card spot.
I think so too. I really think that'll be the spot. I had a thought in my head, and then it just slipped my mind that quickly. Craig, this was fun. Every time I have a guest on, I always end with 9 different questions. Kind of just give me your first thought that comes into your head when you hear each question. Question number 1, and then at the end of this, also, I'll give you time to promote your show even more. If people want to connect with you, where they can listen to your podcast, if they want to connect with your podcast specifically via social media, there's time for that at the end as well. But question number 1, who will start more games in the upcoming season, Jameis Winston or Cam Newton? Favorite NBA player?
Allen Iverson. Currently playing.
Okay. What about someone playing currently?
I love Devin Booker's game.
Nice. I like it too. A game you watched.
Game I watched, I'll never forget. 2004 Detroit Pistons NBA Finals win over the star-studded Lakers. Karl Malone,
the team with Gary Payton.
They were
Malone,
they were
Shaq,
the finals or bust team.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that series. I think Karl Malone got hurt in that series, even though the Pistons were the better team. I think Karl Malone's injury was one thing that the Lakers could never get over. Favorite vacation
Michigan.
spot?
That's easy.
Your home?
Home?
You just like going
Michigan
home?
is beautiful in the summer. Now, if you ask me, like, in the wintertime, where would I go? I'm just staying in Florida.
I forgot. I know when I wrote that down, it didn't click in my head. You already live in Florida. So most people up here, Midwesterners like myself and like where you were born, people want to go down somewhere where it's warm, but you're already warm. So it totally slipped my mind. Place you want to go, but you have never been.
Place I want to go, I've never been. I've never been to. Man, that's a good question. I've never been to Nashville. I'd like to go check out Nashville.
I think you'll like it. I think you like it a lot. If you ever get to go, I would say check out the Country Music Hall of Fame. No matter if you're a country music fan or not, just go in there, look at the history, look at all the stuff that's inside. I think you'll definitely enjoy that. A job in sports you would love to have.
On-air personality.
What network, and is it a sport, specifically one sport, or how would
So
you
I
give me the little
loved
details about that?
watching guys like Dan Patrick, Stuart Scott, SVP in the heyday of Sports Center. But I think now a guy that I really enjoy watching and listening to is Will Kane. I think his kind of just his for the most part he's unbiased unless he's starting to talk about the Cowboys. but but even then he says like, hey, I know I'm a homer, but I try to look at it as objectively as possible. But I think being able to just have the opportunity to reach and impact people on that of much of a scale would be, I mean, it's already a fulfilling thing to do what we do now, even for the few people that listen. And I know we have only got like a couple hundred people that like our show, but that is already a couple hundred people that are interested in hearing what we have to say. So,
Yes, yes. One more question with the Will Kane thing. 'Cause I know he has been on TV. He does do radio. Would you prefer to be on television or do
television.
radio? One game you would love to attend, any sport, anywhere in the world, one game you would love to attend.
I would love to attend the World Cup Championship, men's. It doesn't really
Men's
matter.
or women's?
It doesn't even really matter actually, because soccer is one. Like I've on my bucket list, I want to go see an English Premier League game. One of my old roommates is a big. He's a big Man U fan, and Arsenal's the only team that you can kind of see on this side of the pond. But I think seeing because it's such a worldwide sport, I would love to see a championship game of the World Cup at some point in my life.
You're the second person, I believe, on the podcast that has actually said World Cup, and it's not on my bucket list, not because I don't want to watch international soccer or want to watch anything like that at all. But I think with us living in America and how football is here, and we always have this desire to see what is soccer like on the other side of the water. You can go to Mexico and see soccer. Yeah, Mexico, they play soccer as well. But you go back over there to those other leagues, as I call them, because there's so many. I forget the names of them half the time. If you go see the other leagues over there, man, it makes makes everything look wild, almost like football in the South. How every stadium in the South is full. High school football stadiums, a lot of times in Texas, they're full every Friday night. It's the same thing over there. Their love, their fascination, all the things that we use to describe their fanaticism with sports, they love it, and they go to a different level of that with their sport. Two more things. Who would win in a game? Who would win in a game of one-on-one?
Ooh, depends on what rules you're playing.
James?
So
pick your
I
own
think
rules.
Jordan, just because of his creativity, LeBron is like bigger, stronger, faster. He could probably try to back him down, but I think Jordan's just more crafty. He had to be with the tougher rules. He had to be more crafty on defense. And then when they implemented the hand check rule, the Jordan rule, offense was easy for him in the late part of his career. But the defense, he was still a defensive force, even into the mid part of his 30s.
Yeah, he was. And I was just hoping that you wouldn't bring up the rule aspect, only because, like, not a bad thing. It's actually a real life situation because with the rules, they are different. If you go to basketball in the 80s or even the 90s, it's different than it is today. A lot of people like the older style. Some like the newer style. Some people don't want to believe that don't think players today could have played back then. And some think players back then could have played today. Some think LeBron James could have played back then. Some don't. It's just one of those situations, hypotheticals that we love. And I was just hoping that that would come out because honestly, it is a real scenario there. Last one. He's unfortunately no longer with us. What game did you watch of Kobe Bryant that you will never forget?
The easy one is his 81-point game, but I'm going to say his last ever game at the Staples Center when he scored 60. Yeah. When he hit that, I think that was, you won't forget that just because of all of the stuff that they did pregame, and then it was just kind of his send off. Like it just felt right that was the right way to watch him go out in the sunset.
It did, man. It's unfortunate he's no longer here. I keep having people that I'm friends with, they're all saying they're amazed at how how strong she is throughout this whole situation, because a lot of people, male or female, you don't know what to expect. A lot of people don't believe they have the power and the strength and the mental capacity and can be mentally prepare themselves for something like this instantly, to where one day you wake up, you're preparing to go watch your daughter play where your husband is coaching, and then literally in an instant, the man you've been with, I believe the only person she's ever dated, is gone. Hate to see Kobe gone, but that 60-point game, man, is one that we'll never forget. And honestly, ESPN can't get enough of it because of those sports. They're still playing that game as well. Take a few moments, Craig, to promote your show. Where can people listen to you and Chris on your show? How can they watch you if they want to watch you? And how can they connect with you via social
our show is
well?
called FinalScore. It's part of Podcast City Network, and we stream live on Facebook Live. You can find us at facebook.com/FinalScore. And then you can find us on Twitter, Instagram at PCN Final Score. And then as well as on our website, podcastcity.net/Final Score. And then that's where we're going to have our voting for the Sports Movie Madness tournament, as well as raising funds for people affected by the coronavirus. And we try to do weekly. Once sports gets back, we do go weekly on the weekends, Saturdays and Sundays, depending on our work schedules. But that's the most places. As far as listening to us via podcast outlets, we're on all the major platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher. I'm probably forgetting a couple, but those are the main ones. Basically anywhere that you find a podcast, we are probably on it.
Hey guys, I would encourage you, all the listeners out here on the podcast, get out there and vote on this movie bracket that they have put together. I have seen food brackets. I have seen fictional coach brackets, like your fictional sports coaches. Which one's in a movie would you who would be your favorite? And I think movies, we can all connect with them. We can all we've all watched most of them. If you have not, maybe go to YouTube, watch a quick trailer, say, "Oh, I like that one over this one," things like that. We can all have fun with it. Craig, thank you so much for coming on. I know everyone's quarantined or staying home. We're supposedly supposed to be staying home. I understand that we need to get outside and at least enjoy some sunshine. If you were inside for 2 weeks straight, not going outside at all, we would go insane. We would literally lose our minds. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been listening to your show for quite a while now, and love the stuff you're doing. Keep it up, man. Look forward to working with you again in the future.
Guys, I sure hope you enjoyed that. It's always fun looking back from what players did in the previous year, then also looking ahead into what they might be able to do in the upcoming season. Now, if it's Cameron Newton, we think some things about him. Jameis Winston, we have observations about him. Kyler Murray, we have expectations about him as well. These are all things that we as sports fans or sports hosts or just any old person, you say, "Oh, look at what they did last year. What can they do next year?" Trust me, a lot of people have expectations, have things that they believe these players can do, and it's fun talking about those things, hoping, praying, wishing, believing we'll have football in the fall. Also, I mentioned a couple things at the beginning of the show. I want to reiterate at the end. One, we're going to continue to have guests coming up on the podcast. Have some great guests coming up. An Ohio State podcaster, the guy that is a very thorough guy when it comes to following Ohio State football and basketball, the ins and outs of the program. Weekly, bi-weekly, sometimes they have podcasts. Him and his co-host Johnny, be looking for that coming up next week, the week after draft week. I have a draft scout coming on of NFL Draft Bible. Be looking out for that. Great guy. He knows his stuff. He's very thorough, and you enjoy how he gets us ready for the NFL draft. And then also, like I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the podcast, We have already reached and eclipsed the 4,000 downloads or plays mark in the history within the first anniversary year of the Jay Stevens podcast. And one of my goals, it wasn't the goal when I started the podcast, but it's a goal now. Would love to hit 5,000 downloads or plays by May 12th. By May 12th, the 1-year anniversary of the Jay Stevens podcast. I don't care if it happens this week. I don't care if it happens in a couple weeks. I don't care if it happens at the end of the month. I don't care if it happens at the beginning of May or right at the beginning of May 12th. I don't care when it happens. I would just love to hit that milestone, 5,000 downloads or plays within the first anniversary year of a podcast. That is huge. Very, very huge, and I want to thank you for listening, you for subscribing, rating, and reviewing, and getting the word out via word of mouth to your friends, family, and even those foes that you have in your life about the Jay Stevens podcast, the sports talk that we have, the guests that come on the podcast. Thank you again. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Jay Stevens Podcast. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. If you happen to not be on Twitter and you want to connect with the podcast, send your emails to jstevenspod@gmail.com. Remember to always subscribe, rate, and review. It's a great way for people that are searching for new podcasts to listen to come across this one. Then remember to always get the word out about the podcast via word of mouth. The things that we enjoy in life, we are more willing and somewhat wired to tell other people about. So no matter if this was your first episode or if you have been listening since episode 1, be sure to let people know about the podcast. This has been episode 82 of the Jay Stevens Podcast. I'll see you next time.